Welcome to episode 64 of The 5-Minute Investor, the podcast where we break down stocks at the heart of two stories shaping your investing week. I'm Trevor Abest.
And I'm Jonathan Brown. Each week, we bring one stock, one headline, and one reason investors should care.
This week, with tungsten prices surging by more than 500% since market leader China instituted export controls in February 2025, and the metal serving essential cross-industry roles spanning construction equipment, ammunition, rockets, spacecraft, and semiconductors, Western nations are searching far and wide for assets with the potential to boost domestic supply over the long term. John brings us the first in a pair of Canadian miners stepping up to the plate.
Trevor, a domestic source would be of extreme value, and though Canada doesn't produce tungsten yet, Fireweed Metals Corporation, FWZ on the TSX Venture Exchange, has a potential tungsten project with its Mactung deposit located on the Yukon Northwest Territories border.
Okay, I'm sensing that there might be a big story behind this project, John.
Yeah, we're talking about an advanced stage development project, not yet an operating mine. The company is currently completing a feasibility study and technical work to advance it towards production. Mine licensing is targeted for next year, after which construction and production could follow.
But how big is the Mactung deposit versus global supply, let us say?
Well, Mactung is one of the world's largest undeveloped tungsten deposits, with tens of millions of tons of ore, whereas the global supply is only about 80,000 to 85,000 tons per year. So this means that a single project like Mactung could potentially supply a meaningful share of global demand for decades, which, to coin a popular buzzword of the day, gives a high strategic importance.
Gotcha. But how has this potential resonated with investors?
FWZ stock, from what I've seen, is an interesting place for potential investors right now. So halfway through 2026 is where we're at, and we see a 55% gain since January, as of this recording, of course. So since this time last year, though, the stock is up more than 80%. That's taken a bit of a dive since April, and this past week, it's also taken down 5 to 6% slide. So this looks, like a sell-off. Now the company just announced last week that it's begun a field program with drilling at Mactung and its MacPass projects. So if you haven't checked out this company yet, you might want to just see how low it gets before, when it gets back to on its upward track. So the same thing happened to the stock I saw about a week back in March when the company then announced a feasibility study. Now, Fireweed stock typically trades over $4.50 Canadian, but hit an all-time high of over 5 Canadian dollars a share in April. I should also point out that the company has a market cap of just $968 million Canadian. But this is still an early-stage story. Trevor's going to tell you about another stock that has a more advanced, solidly backed tungsten operation focused on a world-class deposit.
That's right, John. My tungsten miner worth your due diligence is GoldHaven Resources, ticker GOH on the Canadian Securities Exchange, market cap 18.87 million Canadian. An exploration company advancing a polymetallic portfolio in British Columbia and Brazil, about to embark on a highly prospective 2026 drilling program.
For investors, tapped into the tungsten tailwind, Trevor, where should they look for value as GoldHaven spins its drill bits?
That would be in the company's wholly owned Magno project in British Columbia's Cassiar district, John, whose silver mineralization, sampling up to 2,370 grams per ton of silver, zinc, sampling up to 19.25% zinc, and tungsten, sampling up to 4 meters, grading 1.32% tungsten trioxide, all of it spread across a district-scale land package, speaks to the presence of a large mineralized system. The project's Coon and Dead Goat zones even host a combined 616,500 tons in historical resources, grading 0.48% tungsten trioxide, which amounts to 2,959 tons. And at a price of about $300,000 for a ton of tungsten, as per a report from the Oregon Group I'll include in the show notes, that works out to almost 900 million US in the ground versus the company's market cap of just 18.87 million Canadian.
Always check the show notes. So what are GoldHaven's prospects in terms of ushering in Magno through development and into production, in your estimation?
Well, judging by Canada's mining-friendly government and tungsten finding itself on the federal government's official list of critical minerals, chances are that if the company establishes a large-scale tungsten resource at Magno, ideally through a feasibility study, doors will be open to expedite the project's path to market. Numerous non dilutive avenues exist towards this end, including the critical mineral exploration tax credit and potential funding through Natural Resources Canada, which runs the First and Last Mile Fund. Alternatively, GoldHaven could cut an option or a royalty deal with a major miner with a proven history of developing and monetizing exploration stage assets. Teck Resources, London Mining, Hudbay Minerals, and Glencore are a few names that come to mind.
The fact that the company's market cap and the value of its historical tungsten resources is so far apart leads me to ask about the stock price. What's the story there as of late?
Okay, so Goldhaven has spent the past year feeding the market with attractive exploration results, covering both Magno and its Copesal gold project in Brazil. Concurrently, gold prices are up by more than 30% year over year as conflict in Ukraine and the Middle East stokes safe haven demand, adding leverage on top of tungsten's considerable tailwind. It's then not so much of a surprise that Goldhaven stock is sitting on a market beating return, 150% year over year at the time of writing, to be exact, a fact that should only increase investor enthusiasm as the company breaks ground on its 2026 exploration program.
One last one for you, Trevor. Aggressive exploration plans are all well and good, but does the company have the money to follow through on them?
At least for this year's program, I'd say its coffers are in a good place, having raised 3.26 million Canadian in flow-through capital in May, which will all go towards Magno's advancement. This means that the company's tight 62.9 million shares outstanding will, for the moment, remain steady as advised to transform positive news flow into shareholder value.
As always, you can find links to the articles from today's episode in the show notes and more investing insights on stockhouse.com.
And you can find the 5 Minute Investor on Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Stockhouse, or wherever finer podcasts are found. This podcast is produced in partnership with Fireweed Metals Corp and GoldHaven Resources Corp and is intended for informational purposes only. For full disclaimer information, please visit stockhouse.com/legal/disclaimer.